You are listening to a .P one-on-one. Pyrian Flax, welcome to the show, sir.
Hello.
That is Casey Atchison. Welcome to the show, Casey.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome, Sunsfan.
Hello, friends. It's been a long time.
Mott, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me once again. Very excited to be here.
Austin, Capitalist Walsh. Welcome to the show, Cap.
Thank you very much, man. It's good to be back.
Special guest, Sir Action Slacks. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
But none of these come anywhere close to the guest we have today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to .P One-on-One. I am your host, Roland. Today, I'm lucky enough to be sitting here with the Maleficent Cyphus.
No, I don't think you used
No,
that
I
word
meant to.
right.
I know. I meant to say
Oh, okay.
Maleficent. Yes.
I thought it was going to be
No, it was
enigmatic.
Not, it was not a repeat of enigmatic. I am sitting here with Cyphus, a.k.a. Denny, a.k.a. General Denny, a.k.a. Pouty Denny,
Oh,
a.k.a.
really? I even have a
Friendly
pouty.
Denny.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've explained that you have a
okay.
Pouty Denny. Longtime friend of mine,
That's right.
and someone that you guys may or may not care about.
Yep, probably the latter.
Don't be so self-defeatist, please.
I'm sorry.
And you probably like him. Little background on the guest before we get started. Co-founder of Defense the Patients.
Think I've heard of that.
Think I've heard of that. Yep. It was really Cyphus's idea to start Defense the Patients. I only came up with the name and the format and everything else. He just had the idea to do it.
Let's podcast, I said, and then Roland did everything.
And then everything else came together when I got on board. But no, it is definitely not about me today. This is going to be a very earnest interview with a very
okay.
good friend of mine. No, I mean that.
Okay.
No
yeah.
sarcasm. First and foremost, how has your day been?
I'm
I'm going to refer to you as Denny, by the way.
Okay, that's fine. It's been a typical day.
Typical day. What is a typical day?
Getting up.
What time?
I get up. So I have a job that has a lot of flexibility.
Okay.
I'm a salaried employee. I do good work, if I'm being honest with myself. You know, pat
You
myself
can
on the
say
back,
that,
yeah.
and I can attest to that.
So I work for an engineering firm. We do a ton of different things. Some of it's like government related. That's where most of my efforts are focused. I depending on what the requirements of the day are. So we support people all over the world. So some days I have to be in significantly earlier because of time zone differences. Others I can get away with being a little bit later. And I'll be honest, I'm like they call it an earner and burner with my leave. You know, I like to roll in an hour and a half, 2 hours late sometimes. But yeah, so I have a lot of flexibility. So I'll get up anywhere between like 6:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. typically.
Okay.
And then head into work.
How has Defense the Patients since August 2014 when we started this?
Yeah.
How has that affected your routines? As far as you've been at this job for how many years now?
Going on like 11 or 12 somewhere.
Going
in
on
there.
like 12.
I
remember when
started
you-
this like right out of high school. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, let's couch my question and
Okay.
let's go back to how you got this job, because this was
This
actually
job.
this not where you're currently at, but how you
Yeah.
got to where you are currently at.
Sure.
Because this is actually an interesting story. You were, some backstory from my perspective, you were the guy who made a lot of money to all of
Sure.
us because we were all young and you made a lot of money.
Yeah, but I'm also slightly older than the rest of you.
But you made like what like my dad made. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
sure.
Like that's the thing. And it was like, I remember there were whisperings like, yeah, Denny makes like a lot.
No, I mean I like for
And so let's get there. Let's get there.
Okay.
You were a young kid. How old were you?
when I got this job, I had just barely turned 19. Like I started this job like a month after I turned 19.
Okay.
So I got my first job when I was 15. I went and worked a really shitty fast food job. Segued that over into a call center
How
job.
did you work at 15?
Did
you lie?
I lied. Yeah,
You lied?
I just told my. I put my birthday a year earlier, and I just told them I didn't have a driver's license yet. That my family wouldn't let me get one.
And they got you and set up and...
Yeah, they. So I had been in Utah living with my grandmother for like a year or two at that point.
We'll get to this.
Yeah. And the guy who ran the fast food joint was a friend of my grandparents. And my grandparents, because I wanted to work so bad, were cool with me lying about my age. So they told the guy I was 16, and then he just hired me on. I mean, it was a shitty job.
Did you have the same work ethic that you? I mean, I will say you have good work ethic. Did you have good work ethic at 15 at an Arctic Circle?
Yeah, it was an Arctic Circle. Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. I didn't. That job was so miserable. So I mean, I did my damnedest. I calculated really early on that money would equal freedom for me. And decided that, I needed to start making my own money so I could start doing what I wanted to do and when I wanted to do it. And start funding, if I wanted to go see a movie, I wanted to be able to go see a movie. I didn't want to have to ask anybody for money. I just wanted to be like, hey, I'm going to see a movie. I've got the money for it. If I wanted to buy a new D&D book, I wanted to have the money for it. And very quickly that always turned into this weird hour math where I would look at that $40 D&D book, and at the time, minimum wage was like $5.15 an hour.
I think $5.25.
Yeah, maybe somewhere in there. So, and so basically after taxes, like that was like $4.75 an hour is what you were really taking home, maybe $4.50 an hour. So I was doing miserable math, like, well, that D&D book is 10 hours at Arctic Circle. That watch is 7.5 hours at Arctic Circle, and those were cheap items, really. It was miserable. But I very quickly got out of that. But when I officially turned 16 and I had my driver's license, I applied for a call center gig, went in and did that. Within about 3 or 4 months, I got promoted to a supervisor position. I was the youngest supervisor they'd ever had. I ran a team of like 30 or 40 guys.
Till I came around, but we can keep
sure.
going.
That was its own shitty experience working at a call center. Anybody who's doing that now or knows or has done that in the past knows those are not fun places. I'll say that the one that I worked at in particular had a lot of really shady shit going on. I mean, to the tune of like faking sales and the kind of stuff that made me especially nervous as an underager. Being there, I mean, I worked there from like 16 to just before I turned 18.
Dedicated. By the way, this place, this call center, which I also worked at, I also got super. Anybody who was willing to put in anything above a D effort would get promoted to supervisor.
Yeah, I don't want to make that sound like that was a grand accomplishment by any means. That was not.
But this is the type of place you would work at. You'd be like, man, like, I really want to go to that party in a couple of weeks. I'm just going to go work at this call center for like a week and a half.
And people would do that. Yeah, it had a lot of turnover.
So to work there for 2 years is admirable, to say the least.
The lowest the turnover rate ever hit while I worked there was about 56%, somewhere in that range.
Oh, and they'd rehire you. They'd fire you, and then I'd reapply in a couple weeks.
I would see the same people there 6 weeks down the road. Yeah. And unless you did something like expose your genitals to someone on the site, you were rehirable. You could probably get maybe. If the person you exposed your genitals to had quit and hadn't asked for to be rehired yet, you could probably get back on.
I mean, so there was this smoking area at this you didn't work at the location I did.
No,
I worked on
not.
a different location, but very often drugs. Drugs in between calls. I saw a lot of the hardest core drugs I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
Were while working at this place.
Man, when I had started there,
they didn't drug test, and that was another thing.
Oh yeah, they didn't drug test. So you can only imagine who wanted to show up there, and even better was they started everybody out at $7 an hour at a time when minimum wage was like $5.20,
was like
$5.25.
Fucking A.
Yeah, and I remember being 17, and as a supervisor, I was making like $11 an hour, and I felt like I was rolling in the money.
Yeah.
And at 17, I was. I mean, that was all.
Hell yeah.
I spent every penny of that on bullshit. I didn't do anything great with it. I bought nice clothes. I wore suits every day.
Yeah.
I was an asshole at school. Nobody liked me. So, but in fact, before I started working there on your drug comment, like I had never been exposed to. I was a good kid. Like I was a relatively good kid. I think the worst thing I ever did was like drink a little alcohol that some parents had left around. That was maybe the worst thing I'd ever really done. I was seeing everything. It was the first time I'd ever seen cocaine. It was
Yeah,
the first
meth.
time I'd ever seen
Meth was a big
it was
thing.
definitely the first time I'd ever seen pot, and I saw a lot of pot.
Well, I couldn't believe it, especially as a supervisor, because I started smoking cigarettes at a very young age. So I would go out there on my breaks, and it would be in front of me as a supervisor, just smoking pot.
Yeah, people had no.
And the thing was, in order for me to, if I wanted to exert any authority, I would have to go to 4 rungs up at corporate to get that person fired. And they didn't want that person fired. They needed those seats filled.
They only wanted that person fired if they weren't a good salesperson.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really where it all came down to. If your numbers were good, you could get away with anything.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I mean, anything.
I mean, so just that paints a pretty pretty beautiful picture of this location.
Yeah, that was the call
stayed there
center
2
life.
years.
Yeah, for 2 years.
I
Well, I was
there-
just making too much money. For being that old.
Can we please get the story about when your grandfather-in-law showed up?
So yeah, while I was working there, and mind you, I'm trying to. I at this point, like, I have no idea what I want to do for a career or anything like that. I'm trying to be as professional as possible. I'm trying to cultivate an image of professionalism within this company so I can climb even higher potentially. Like, I thought, well, hell, I mean, if I'm making $11 an hour now, what could I be making in a few years?
18.
So my grandfather, whom I was living with at the time, and has since passed away. He was a strict man. I mean, that's maybe me putting it nicely. He was a very strict man. Every time I always tell people this, they always ask me if he was in the military. No, he was not. He was just an asshole. He would get upset at us if we didn't make our beds in the morning. Not if we didn't make them, but if we didn't make them and have the sheets even and the covers even on both sides, the quilt, or the blanket on top evenly on both sides. He did spot check inspections of our rooms, including invading like our drawers and any private space we had, with pretty regular frequency. So at this point, I'm there. I'm making good money. I am managing a team of 40 people. He shows up at my work, and he tells me that my room isn't clean. And this is maybe the most embarrassing experience you could possibly have when you are supposed to be. I mean, I was supposed to be a manager. Imagine how shitty I looked to the 40 people who I was supposed to be the boss of, that my fucking grandfather is there telling me I didn't clean my room properly. And he gave me 2 options. Option A was I left work immediately and came home and cleaned it. Option B was I paid him $20 to go home and clean it. And so I went with option B. I paid him $20.
Did he clean it?
He didn't clean it. He took the money and ran. And taught me another valuable life lesson: don't pay somebody until they do the job.
Did he actually cite that?
Oh, no. That was just my poor attempt at humor.
Okay. So moving on from that would be a horrifyingly embarrassing experience.
It was terrible. But thankfully, the turnover rate, like I said, was so high that most of the people were gone within a couple of weeks. It didn't really matter. I had to fire a couple of friends while I worked there. Mm-hmm. I had 3 buddies who, around the time that Neverwinter Nights got released, we were all huge D&D nerds. They'd asked me to help get them jobs, which help is a loose term there. They could have gotten a job without me.
But they were like, will you fill out my paperwork for me?
They wanted me to help them. What they wanted was to make sure they were working for me. And that was because they thought that I would go easy on them. Which, I wasn't... I wasn't like a douchebag to anybody. I wasn't a stickler about anything. I tried to... I tried to keep people motivated. I tried to get sales. I had those you were firing people. You were firing 2 to 3 people a week there. Which isn't fun. Like, I can tell you from personal experience, firing anybody is not fun. Maybe for Roland. So I had 3 buddies. Neverwinter Nights had just come out about 2 weeks after they started there, and they went home for the weekend. They played a good 48 hours straight of Neverwinter Nights. I did not have a PC at the time, so was left out of this, and it was miserable. All I wanted to do was play that fucking game.
I thought you were rolling in it.
No, I would. I could. I guess I should have bought a PC. I didn't know at the time. All right, and I don't know where I would have put it at that house. So they roll into work late the first Monday. I have to give a written warning. They roll into work late the next Tuesday. I think this was all over the course of a summer, if I remember correctly. But they were rolling in late, and they did it like 3 or 4 days a week, and 3 or 4 days that week because they were playing Neverwinter Nights. And even worse was they were like the stereotypical nerds. They were showing it was terrible. They were showing up. They reeked of BO because they weren't showering. They were immediately going home after work to get as much Neverwinter Nights time in as possible, sleeping until the next day about noon, playing until 3:30 or 4 o'clock when they were supposed to be at work at 4 o'clock, and then rolling in at like 4:30 or 5. And they stunk, and they were wearing the same clothes every day that week. They wore the same clothes. And finally, the call center manager came over to me. He was like, "Hey, you got to let him go." So I had to fire 3 friends. So I had to sit them all down.
How did they take it? How did that conversation go?
They didn't give a shit. They were like every other employee at that call center. They'd made their money. They had Neverwinter Nights to go back to. So what did they really give a shit? I mean, nobody needed, when you're 16, 17, 18, you don't need money. The job doesn't mean, there are a few 16, 17, 18-year-olds that like need to keep their job. That desperately need to.
I was one of them. And you were too.
Yeah. I didn't need to. I could have stayed at home and been fine. I could have lived at home. I could have spent a lot of time at home. But that living environment was so awful with my grandfather that like I wanted a job. Mm-hmm. I wanted as much. I had school. That was nice. That was 5 days a week that I was gone and away from him. I wanted another 4 hours at the end of every day, and nobody would complain if what you were gone doing was working a job. So that's what I did.
Okay, so you leave this industry.
Yeah, so I left there to take an even better paying gig. I was making like $15 an hour, which was that's where I felt like I was really starting to make money. And that was working for a quality control contractor that was contracted with Autoliv, who does all the airbag manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So I would go out there for like 6 hours a night, and my job was to drive around this little orange car. And I mean little. Like, it was a little golf cart. It was smaller than a golf cart. I would sit on this thing. It was battery powered. I would drive around. I'd pick up airbags. I'd take them back to the engineering test bay, and I would look at the sticker, and an orange sticker meant it went in the oven, and it usually had a temperature associated with it, and a blue sticker meant it went in the fridge with another temperature attached to it. I'd throw them all in, set the temperature, and then what we'd do is we'd wait for them to sit there for like 6 or 8 hours, and then you'd run them into the test bay and run it, simulate a car crash and see if the airbag still went off after significant heat and significant, cold. Oh, okay. Or extreme heat and extreme cold. I did that for a little while, and I guess part of getting this engineering gig that I got is that I did debate in high school. And I did policy debate, which is...
Well, let's stop this here, and let's start from Denny in 9th grade. Okay. Because that's really where I want this to begin. Denny enters the same high school I entered, but actually tries.
No, I entered that high school for about 3 months, and we moved.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I want to start when you started at the high school that I'm talking about.
Okay, so it was probably like the last 2 or 3 months of my sophomore year was really when I got going there.
Okay.
I had gone to that school during my freshman year, during 9th grade, very briefly, and then left and then came back.
Where'd you leave to?
I think it was at a school down in Texas during that time, if I remember correctly.
Were you happy to be moving?
No, I was not thrilled to be in Texas, to say the least. That was pretty miserable.
And then you make your way back to Ogden, Utah.
Yeah, and that was when I decided to stay with the grandparents because they were still in the same town. Went back to our high school, and 10th grade roughly.
Okay,
started up there.
And what about debate? Why debate?
Because it was intellectual. I had played football on and off as a kid, and then when I was down in Texas, I had given it another go, with the exception of like being able to see that it was clearly having like positive physical impacts. It was also Texas football and high school Texas football programs they're a different beast than high school sports in other locations. They, it's hard to describe the way that the people who run those programs run them. They're pretty miserable. The people involved are all pretty terrible, and the average football player that I at least had the experience of working with was dumb as a rock. And I I didn't grow up watching football and think, God, I want to be a football star. God, I want to be Troy Aikman, or, you know, I want to be Emmitt Smith. I'm using Dallas Cowboys for a reason, you know, players for a reason from that era. But I didn't want to be those guys. I didn't see that and think like, that's the life for me. Oh yeah. I didn't have any interest in, a lot of those guys played football because they got a lot of tail in high school doing it.
Okay.
That wasn't my motivation either. It didn't appeal to me in any way. And when I got back up here, our school has it used to when we were going, had one of the premier debate teams, not just in the state, but I mean in the region, in the Western United States. And yeah, I had dabbled with it when I had been here before. I had done the event called Congress, where you basically simulate the House of Representatives. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. It felt a little cliched at times, I guess is how I'll describe Congress. It wasn't. It never felt like a very serious event. It always felt like a help kids get comfortable with being public speakers kind of an event, and in a fun, like, hey, we're playing Congress. Like, that's how it always felt. So when I got back into it, I asked the debate coach, I was like, hey, what's the event? Like, what is the event? No joke. And he told me that policy was. And I said, okay, so why? And he said, well, policy is basically the premier debate event on the collegiate level. He says he told me that when, you know, he cited a couple of congressmen at the time who had been like former policy debaters, who had developed experience and expertise in you know, defending cases that way. He said a lot of successful attorneys usually wind up, like big name attorneys, they'll point to their policy experience in their resume. Being an attorney was something I even considered at the time. I have a lot of attorneys in the family. So I went and did policy and did really well, like second at state and, you know, first at the majority of terms, first at a lot of like national tournaments.
What made you good?
I probably research and honest to an extent. I mean, if I'm being honest here, I bullshit. I bullshit well. There were a couple of times. So policy requires you to take a standard topic for the entire year, which is something other events don't do. And for instance, the first year that I did it, the topic was the United States shall enact legislation to decrease nuclear proliferation. So if you were on the affirmative, you went in with a massive plan for reducing nuclear proliferation by the United States. And if you went in as the negative, your goal was to tackle the affirmative plan and destroy it and take it down every bit.
What's harder? I mean, was it, like, would affirmative be harder, or would...
I think you could argue that there was an affirmative advantage because you're always on your home turf when you're affirmative, right? Like, if I wrote
it's like home field.
Yeah, because I wrote that case. I knew that case in and out.
Were you affirmative then?
No, you swapped.
Oh, okay.
So at every event you would go, and sometimes you toss a coin. Sometimes you're affirmative, sometimes you're negative.
Oh, so on your own case you have to play devil's advocate.
No, not your own case. The enemy teams.
Oh,
the enemy.
Man.
The enemy. I call them the enemy team. The opponents of the case. The enemy team.
Okay. So this is breeding competition as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was a competitive bastard even then.
This is highly intellectual competition.
Yeah, so I mean, no joke. Like, I think the case that we ran for nuclear proliferation was probably 30 pages, and basically what you do is you would cite some assumptions, you would cite some, and then every assumption had to be backed by evidence, right? So you would have a news article, you would have some, preferably an academic article, something pointing to what made your assumption a sound assumption to make. Then you had to point to the evidence that what you were doing was good, and there was always evidence associated with that. And then you had to highlight the plan, and you had to have evidence to back up your implementation of the plan. And then the negative's job was to, you could take a couple of different strategies. Maybe you attack their assumptions and say, well, how can we enact this legislation if we can't even trust their assumptions? And you would provide evidence to counter that. So being a good team in policy meant, so the other day when you were at the house and you wanted to throw away my dolly,
yeah,
I have a lot of sentimental feelings.
Yeah, because you carried all your case
studies. I
studies.
carried 2 massive cases full of evidence. One was an affirmative evidence so that I was prepared for any negative argument against my case. The other was full of negative arguments, and I had to prep for all sorts of cases. And so you'd start to get people. So it was interesting how like the meta of policy would kind of evolve, in that as you got further on in the year, you would see people start to go, oh, that's a good case. Let's take a spin on that case. And they would start to try to copy and duplicate that. So you would start to identify trends and strategy for affirmatives and prepare for those as negatives. What I was good at in policy was developing strategies that enemy teams hadn't seen. I keep calling them enemy teams.
It's fine. We get
the negative teams hadn't seen. So, for instance, anytime I went into a big tournament where like a lot was on the line, especially like state tournaments where it was like it'd be really good to win that tournament, I would prep a new case, and we'd spend 80, maybe 100 hours over the course of 2 weeks prepping a new case so that we could shock and awe the negative. And at the same time, you had to have enough negative evidence prepared to tackle a plethora of different cases. And there were, I mean, and this is a very, like, this is without going into detail with policy.
I understand.
Like, this is so when you carry those cases, like, you become familiar with those cases. Like, that Dolly and me spent a lot of time together hauling around massive bins of evidence and massive bins of articles and all sorts of case strategy. And
so I'm going to cite something here real quick. This is kind of a one-off. That would require some very heavy organization. Yeah, you need to be able to get to files very quickly.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Why didn't that transfer over into your real life?
Because if I don't care about something, I don't worry about organizing it. I mean, have you seen my desktop ever? How many icons I have on my desktop?
I mean,
like,
you've seen mine.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of the same there.
Yeah.
I mean, mine. I have 2 screens out of the office, and I just have documents all over them. Like, they're everywhere.
Okay, so if it's something you care about, you feel like organizing it is important.
Sure.
Okay, let's continue with policy.
So I guess the reason I tell that story is to get to this job.
Okay.
So generating a lot of different cases. I had a lot of really solid writing examples, and
you're becoming a good speaker. You're becoming a good writer. You're becoming a good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You're becoming good at research.
I'm becoming confident in those regards for sure.
Do you another one off? Do you attribute policy to your I'm going to use prowess, to your skill in writing?
Yeah, I've always felt naturally talented with writing, which is going to be funny to say because when I type in Discord and shit, like, I've gotten to the point now where I almost intentionally break rules with grammar and punctuation when I'm typing in Discord and I'm typing to people, just because it's almost like assimilating into the culture.
Yeah, it's kind of like slang almost. Yeah.
And I used to be way more stringent with it. Like, I used to properly punctuate and capitalize all of my text messages and every interaction I ever had online. I don't know. I've always I would say that had more to do with some early, like, English teachers and some early English courses I took at a tech school, actually, like in 9th grade.
Okay.
That helped, like, fine tune writing, but not that policy didn't further sharpen, that skill by any means. But
okay, so you're damn good at policy. You're a good bullshitter.
Yes. Yeah.
And now what?
So I'm working at Autoliv. I've been done with high school now for like 8 or 9 months. An old policy teammate of mine, his dad was an engineer who was working with an engineering firm. And they were looking for a tech writer, except that they didn't have the funding to go to a private defense contractor to pay them what tech writers usually charge. So he was curious if I'd just come in and interview and if I wanted to try it. And he said they want to see writing samples. They want you to do a face-to-face interview. They want to talk to you. And in fact, it wasn't even that they wanted a technical writer. The reason they were so screwed, I've realized since I got there, is that what they wanted was somebody to come in and write these news articles for government publications about things that they were doing to kind of create like positive publicity. So it was almost like PR work that they actually wanted. So I went in and I took in some sample cases that I'd written for policy. I just brought in some binders. I brought in a few different articles that I had written that had appeared like in high school newspapers and other shit like that. And I sat down and talked with them, and just I remember the bullshit line I fed him at the time, which I still believe is true, but I had absolutely no basis to back it up, was I'm very good at learning what I need to know technically to write something sound and meaningful, and to know just enough to complete whatever project I need to. Like, I can delve in and I can work with people, and I can dive into jargon, and I can figure that out, because there's a lot of jargon in the engineering world.
Oh yeah.
And they bought it. They liked the writing samples, and they hired me on, at least on a temporary basis. And within my first few months of working there, I was writing articles for the Airmen, which is an Air Force publication. I wrote a couple of articles for F16.net for some work that they were doing on the F-16. And then I wrote like a half dozen articles for some other engineering journals for things that are not as, flashy as, all the Air Force stuff. But I even helped them write like an article on some of the automated checkout stuff before automated checkout became a thing.
Oh, wow.
Because that was something that they were delving into, was automated checkout registers. I can't remember what the term for it was, but you know what I mean. The auto checkout lane, the self-checkout.
Self-checkout.
And then segued that into legitimate technical writing.
How?
Just by interacting with the engineers. They would tell me something. They would tell me I have a decent memory. I won't claim that I'm photographic or anything like that, but
It's a good memory. I'll say that.
So they would tell me acronyms, what the acronyms stood for, because they'll talk in acronyms, but when you're writing technical documents or you're writing articles, you don't want to use acronyms
Do you
repeatedly.
like parenthesis acronym after?
Yeah, I mean, there's an element. So it depends on what you're writing, right?
We don't need to go into this.
Yeah, some things you can't do it, some things you can't.
Okay.
But I was very good at remembering what all their acronyms meant, and then on top of that, I was good at figuring out how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. So like when they would design like test equipment for testing like avionics stuff, there are elements like a test program set and an ITA, an interface test adapter, and all of these things were things that I needed. I don't know anything about those. I don't know how they work. I don't know what goes into them, but I know how all those pieces fit together to create one fully functional project. And that's all I need to know, because I don't have to design them. I don't have to do any of that bullshit. I was able to how to figure all that stuff out. And they, at least enough to write articles about it. And that made them want to work with me, one. And then two, feel like I could handle the job. So they started throwing me technical writing stuff, writing tech manuals.
Are you still getting paid the same when you're starting to do this?
I think I saw a slight pay bump when I went up to doing tech writing, like full-fledged tech writing, as opposed to article writing is what they kept calling it.
Okay, what does the money feel like now? You don't have to give figures, but what does it feel like?
I would like to make more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would definitely like to make more. It's not bad. I could probably live off of this the rest of my life and live comfortably.
I'm talking back then. I'm not talking now.
Oh, back then the money felt insane.
Yeah, I'm not talking now.
Now. Well, I'd always like to make a little bit more. No, I mean, I was 21, and I think at the time, I think my take home pay was somewhere around like $2,300 or $2,400 a month, and
what is that? $25K a year?
Oh yeah, but when you factor in taxes, like,
oh, okay,
yeah. I mean, I think my starting salary there was like $41,000 a year.
And you're like,
oh yeah. I mean, that was.
Yes.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what to do with that money, and I blew it. Oh, I blew it like an idiot.
What? Let's get some like 5 examples of your favorite things to spend money.
I went to Las Vegas all the time.
Oh, okay.
I just went to Vegas. I went down to Vegas maybe once a month for a while there.
Would you fly or would you drive?
No, I love driving.
Okay.
I don't know why. You guys every year when we go to TI, or like every time I talk to Rin about taking a trip,
I like flying.
I'm always like,
comfortable.
let's drive, like, because I like seeing things.
Drunk on the plane. I mean,
I don't care.
It's great, dude.
You can get drunk in the passenger seat while I drive.
No, that's open container.
We'll stop at the bar and then you can have the passenger seat.
Okay, that's a good idea. Okay, so you're bringing home checks, and you have no interest in saving money?
No, because I'm an idiot. Yeah, because deep down I'm really an idiot. I mean, I bought a house, which I'm now trying to sell, which is its own nightmare story. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I should have saved, absolutely.
What
if
was
I could
life
go back.
Like? Are these like the days that you look back on and you're like, God, it was good?
Well, yes and no. I was dating a girl that I thought I was going to marry at the time.
Yes.
That I proposed to. And
She said yes.
she said yes. And then like 4 or 5 months later, we had a huge blowout 'cause she wanted me to move. Actually, this job semi-impacted that relationship, and that she wanted me to move with her so that she could go away to college. And I was like, well, I don't know that I could get a job making this much money where you're going. And at the time, I had my brother.
Who you were a legal guardian.
Yeah, who I was the legal guardian of. Because, as I mentioned, the aforementioned miserable grandfather, I didn't want to leave him behind in that. And he's only like 5 years younger than me. So I let him move in with me, and he's part of the reason I even bought a house, honestly. So I was like, I'm going to try to find some stability for this kid in his last like 4 or 5 years of school.
I remember seeing you drop him off because we're similar age.
Because he was a piece of shit.
You would drop him off at school, and then he'd talk. He'd walk around with his guitar. And,
Yes. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Yes, he was.
But I always saw
quite the
you
character.
in your Honda Civic, and it was nice.
Yeah.
It was a nice hybrid, and this is back when hybrids were like, basically driving a Tesla would be
It was maybe
equivalent.
a little past all this. I think was the
This is a little.
buying the brand new Honda Civic was something I did when I realized I wasn't going to have to pay for a girlfriend for a while.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that when I was, I think a sophomore, or no, I dropped out when I was a sophomore. So when I was a freshman, I just remember seeing you, in this hybrid car that's like, wow, how conscientious, you know?
I was trying to be.
And dropping Dustin off and Dustin feeling cool. Like, I remember him getting out of the car and being like, well,
he was in a band, and he lived the rock and roll lifestyle through high school. We were polar opposites, he and I, for high school.
Sure. Okay, so you're making money that like is coming out of your ears. You're spending it in Vegas. I'm sure you're playing dumb games like craps and stuff like that. Blackjack.
No, it was blackjack. Blackjack was the game. I honestly never played anything else when I went there.
So what? You'd get drinks and play blackjack and have a good time?
Yeah, I mean, I knew
get nice hotel rooms, that type of thing.
Oh yeah, always a suite.
So a nice hotel room in Vegas.
Oh yeah.
Playing blackjack, wearing suits.
Had to. I walked around there like
What was your drink? What was your drink when you would sit at the blackjack table?
Vodka Red Bull for a long time.
Okay. Vodka Red Bull. Good for you.
I never drank a Red Bull outside of a vodka and Red Bull until I started hanging out with you.
Okay. Yeah. It's a lot better without the vodka, I'll tell you that much.
I don't know.
Okay, so you get home from Vegas and a few years pass. What's going on?
Let's see. So I broke up with that girl, or she broke up with me. That was a whole clusterfuck.
Can we get the
I don't know.
baby swap story?
Oh my God.
Please. It's a good story.
This is only like 6 and maybe 7 or 8 years ago. This would have been the most painful story in the world to tell.
I know. That's what makes it great. Let's get that story.
So the fight over not wanting to move because of this job and having my brother here and yada yada yada, led to this blowout one weekend where she went back. The town she wanted me to move to really wasn't that far away. Like it was like 4 hours away. But it was far enough away I wasn't going to be able to work this job. So she went back. She was already in college at the time. And over the course of this fight, she was like, well, let's just take a break. And then, which was like devastating to me. I have this scene saved in my head for the future sitcom I write someday, because I was laying on the couch, like I was just so sad because she left me with a ring.
Crying?
Oh, dude, I was too depressed to cry.
Dude.
I was too depressed to cry. Like,
listening to smear black ink.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure Postal Service played a role there.
Yeah.
So I'm laying on the couch. I'm devastated. She had left me with the ring, which to me felt like
the ultimate betrayal.
It was like that was as serious as it could get. Yeah. When she wanted to take that break. And Dustin walks in. And he's like, "Oh, I just had the shittiest day ever." And I just held the ring up as I laid on the couch. And he's like, and he looked at me. He's like, "Fine, you win." So during the break, she slept with somebody else.
She banged another dude.
And then I can't believe we told this story on the fucking podcast. Why did I let you go this direction with me?
Because I wanted to get... there's still a few stories.
She and I had been intimate relatively recently as well. So when she wound up being pregnant about 4 weeks later, there was some concern, we'll say. There was some concern.
I don't mean to laugh. I'm
trying to decide how much trouble I could potentially get in for telling this. I'm going to tell the story.
Trouble?
I don't know.
No trouble.
So my sister was really good friends with this girl as well. My sister had introduced me to this girl to begin with, and my sister had since moved out of town, and things were so bad between me and the girl that we weren't really talking, and she was insisting because the other guy was LDS and I was not, and she was also LDS. Her family really wanted that baby to be his and not mine, because that meant that they could get married, they could eventually get sealed in the temple, they could eventually live the LDS lifestyle, and that horrific non-LDS bastard was out of her life forever. So my sister comes up after the baby's born, and I bought a DNA test online. I can't remember what the company's called, but like for $150, you could swab 2 people and find out if they were related. So I swab myself, I prep the swab to mail it in. I give my sister the other swab. I'm like, you're going to go see that baby, right? She's like, yeah. So she went in and she stealth swabbed the baby for me when they weren't looking so that I could confirm that it was not my child and live a life of true freedom. And I will say it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
And confirmed not your child?
Confirmed not my child. I will say the best thing that ever happened to me in life was not getting married. I know you got married at like 21 or whatever. Or no, you got engaged. You got engaged.
20, I think 24.
And I gave you endless shit for it, but it was only because the best thing that ever happened to me was not getting married at 20 years old, was not having a kid at 20 years old, and then having the best,
so weird,
the best run of my life. For like, I mean, no joke. Like, I mean, it's just I mean, now it's only stressful because like I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta be grown up and save money, and I gotta be good, and I gotta try to get this podcast going if I really want to do podcasting for a living. I mean, that's the only
make it sound sad.
No, it's not sad, but I mean, it's work.
Yeah,
and it's
work.
But it's fun work. Don't get me wrong. Maybe not my day job, but this is fun work. And I had a blast hanging out. Hanging out with all the people that I got to hang out with afterwards, the people that I became friends afterwards, after I lightened up to a degree. I was like,
how long did it take to get over that? Be honest.
Good 2 years.
Yeah,
probably a good 2 years.
That's a rough one, dude.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, for sure. I thought like, because not only that, like this is like right as like maybe at the tail end of MySpace, the start of Facebook, like being a big thing.
You have to see pictures and shit.
I got to see her all over Facebook of the other dude. I'm like, I wish that was me. And then, but then
how wrong you were.
How wrong I was, because it was so great. It was so great to not have that be. I would advise anybody. The best advice I could give anybody in the world is spend your mid-20s single. It was the best thing I ever did. Like, no joke. It was the best thing I ever did. I had a blast. I enjoyed my mid-20s. I was making money. Everything about my mid-20s was awesome. And I'm not saying that the rest won't be awesome, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have no regrets. As I sit here and talk to you now, I have no regrets about my mid-20s. Every dumb thing I did,
neither do
I'm sorry,
I
dude.
have no regrets whatsoever.
I know this is terrible to say to you, but like to
no,
those of you
I'm happy with my choices. No. There could have been a few women along the way that could have been devastating as well for me. We'll go ahead and say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
speaking of, your wife is somebody I may not have ever met you.
No, we became friends because of her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We became friends due to shared interest and the comfort of you knowing Audrey.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So the shared interest came after you coming over, whatever, for parties or whatever, and then we get talking, drunk bullshit conversations, and then eventually it just turned into, hey, you just want to come over and hang out? And
I think it was when because you're like, what, 5 years younger than me? Yeah, 6 years younger than me? 5 years.
I think maybe, I was the oldest in my grade, so I'm around Dustin's age.
Okay.
So
about 5 years younger.
Yeah.
So, because I remember having nothing to do with you while you were underage.
Well, because you were friends with my, so... I mean, this interview isn't about me, but just to give a quick...
I mean,
so my brother starts hanging out with this Denny's crew while Denny's in his mid... 23, I'd say. 22, 23, maybe even 21 when Andrew first started hanging out with you guys.
I feel like Andrew was a little later on in the crew.
Maybe 22, 23.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's going to Vegas with you guys.
Yeah.
He's having a blast. You guys took away my best friend. Andrew was my best friend. Andrew moved out with his girlfriend. And he was my reprieve from my divorced parents. Oh, yeah. And so I would go over to Andrew's house and be able to, get away be free and all that. And I had a job as well. And so that way I could say, hey, I'm going to sleep over at Andrew's. No big deal. It's your brother's house.
Oh, yeah.
And then do whatever
Do
the
whatever
hell
the
I
hell you felt
wanted.
like,
Yeah. And so then he starts hanging out with these douchebags, the Condo Crew.
Yes.
The Condo Crew.
And I did not give it that name.
Danny, but you were the captain of the Condo
I was.
Crew.
Yes.
And-
A title bestowed upon me only because I A, made all the money,
Yeah.
and B, was the most responsible person anybody knew at that time.
And Andrew's 18, and I am 15 going on 16, and I want to hang out with these guys because they took my. I don't have any. Like, I have my friends, but they're stupid as hell, dude. And I always hung out with older people, like my
Yeah.
brother and his friends.
My only concern was because the funny story about your wife is when your wife was introduced to me, when Audrey was first introduced to me. The first time I ever met Audrey, was at a party, like where everybody's just getting drunk, everybody's getting wasted. I'm sitting up. It had this beautiful house, overlooking the valley, and I had just started smoking. I was smoking a cigarette, and Audrey walks up to me and she says, "Can I have a cigarette?" And I was like, "Sure." I handed her a cigarette, and she's like, "Camel Lights. Thanks." And then she walked off. And I turned to somebody who was standing there with me. I was like, "Well, I'll never see that bitch again."
Little did you know. Cue the Always Sunny music.
But when she started hanging out with us, because she was friends with our buddy Matt, it turned out, and that's why she was even at that party to begin with. When she and Matt started hanging out with us, I didn't know how young she was. I mean, she definitely looked older. Like, I had no idea how young she was. And I remember, because I don't know how much, I don't know how much of like Audrey's situation we've ever really discussed here. But so, I mean, she has a trust fund that she was left, and she was shopping for a house. And I had just bought a house, and she and her mom, and her mom knew my grandmother, and they liked each other, and yada yada yada. So her mom, was always real friendly with me, and they called me up. They're like, "Oh, hey, we're looking at a house over by your place. Why don't you come up and see it?" Because Audrey wanted me to come see. She wanted us all to come see the house. So I rode up there with Matt. We go to look at this house that she's looking at. And
Is it this one?
No, it was not this one. It was it was way further south, like just up the road from me. And we walk into the house, and Audrey's mom's saying, "Well, yeah, I'm, yada, yada, yada. We'll fill out the paperwork, and as soon as you turn 18. And I was like, "What?" I was shocked. I had no idea that we'd only been hanging out like 7 or 8 months at that point, but I had no idea she was under 18. So after that incident where I was shocked, because like she had been over at parties where I know there was alcohol. Like, I mean, I told you, I met her the first time I ever met her was at a party where everybody was getting wasted. Yeah. And so I was panicked, and from there on, my fucking rule was no underagers.
No one younger.
No one younger
than
Yeah,
Audrey.
I was like, no way.
And then here I come.
Yeah.
Long hair, bandana, 2 years younger than Audrey.
So I'm sure we treated you like shit at some point, but it was only because
you guys were assholes.
But it was because you were under 18. Like,
and
I couldn't.
I was over at your house, and I was like trying to be all nice and put on like the hey, I'm willing to be friends with anybody. And the only person that was nice to me was Matthew Froling. Fro. He's been mentioned on this show. And that's only because he likes to be friends with the youngest crop.
Yeah.
He gets older, but his friends stay the same age.
Oh, God.
Okay.
But yeah, so I didn't want any youngsters around.
Yeah.
I don't remember why we told all these stories. Or how we got here.
Funny.
But the mid-20s are the best.
Yeah, mid-20s are the best. Okay, so let's flash forward to the question I was originally going to ask you that led to this long tangent, which is, how has Defense of the Patient since August of 2014 affected your routines as of working at your current place, your relationships, your friends?
Sure.
As we get older, we're noticing that this big group of friends, the Condo Crew, kind of
I know that's fascinating. I know it's fascinating for. So, okay, first off, interesting statistic. If you're friends with someone for longer than you, on average, a person changes their group of friends that they hang out with once every 7 years. And now everybody's going to look at that and be like, "Well, I don't have a completely new set of friends every 7 years," but I'll bet you gradually have a different set of friends over the course of 7 years. I bet if you looked 7 years ago, the people you were hanging out with on a daily basis doesn't quite resemble the people you're hanging out with now. Now, that being said, if you are friends with someone for more than 7 years, odds are you'll be friends with that person the rest of your life. Huh. So I was not. I'm not as shocked now in life because my high school buddies who I fired, I haven't spoken to any of them in going on 10 years. I mean, I not so much as like seen one of them around.
Yeah.
No texts. I don't even think I'm friends with any of them on Facebook.
They stole all your D&D books.
They did steal all my D&D books though, and I had to rebuy them all.
Bastards.
The crew that I hung out with after those guys, I couldn't tell you the last. I mean, I think I ran into one of them not terribly long ago, but that might have been the first time in 4 or 5 years. So it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing some of our friends, especially now that we're getting, you into your mid to late 20s, me into my 30s. It doesn't surprise me that I turned 30 and I'm seeing some of those people fall by the wayside. And let's be honest, like, we were getting drunk every weekend. I was having a good time. I was partying. I was doing whatever the hell I felt like. I was going down to Vegas all the time. Some people keep doing that forever.
Yeah.
Or they keep trying to do that forever. They keep trying to relive.
It was just such a good
that.
time. Why would we stop?
And yeah, and I, to an extent, I get it. Like, I think you and I made the comment beforehand. Like,
I think when you showed up today,
Yeah.
we were like, God damn, I wish we could just go back to drinking and doing nothing all day.
Yeah.
Like, that was a blast.
and yeah, like those are fun times and those are great memories. But one, your body can't handle it forever. That was one thing. Like, I very quickly got to a point where like I just didn't want to get drunk all the time.
Yeah. But waking up the next day is a great reminder of how bad
Yeah.
last night.
And I
how
also
much
don't
fun
want it to
last
sound
night
like
was.
all I did was just get wasted by any means. But I mean,
Dude,
there was
I remember your whatever cocktails that you made that were.
those are called Long Island iced teas.
Long Island iced teas.
And I make them proper.
I made the mistake of drinking 2 of them one night because they're somehow chemically all the alcohols mixed together to just not taste like alcohol.
Yeah.
And you down like 16 ounces and you're like, wow, that was pretty good. I could have another right now.
Yeah.
And then you down another, and next thing you know, you're hugging a toilet because those things are way too strong. Drunkest I've ever been at your house.
Yeah.
Definitely. Drunkest
So-
I've ever been at your house.
but
Having to throw up into that toilet. Oh, just gotta say.
So it doesn't surprise me that some of those people fell off because yeah, you're right. Like I look at definitely not all, but a good chunk of the people that we hung out with are more or less kind of in the same place. And maybe I was different in that, like, even though I was goofing off, especially on the weekends, throughout the week, I was pretty good about maintaining my sense of professionalism. I was still working. I was still focused on, there was this whole side life that I had out at the office, which was figuring out how to climb the career ladder. And that was all very important to me. And I think where the like real schism hit for me with a lot of those guys is that, so I never went to, I went to one semester of college between 18 and 19, didn't like it, and then just dropped out. When I turned 26, 27, I had started dating Rin at that point, and she, expressed this interest in going to school. She really wanted to, and she got me to go with her just for a semester.
Well, do you remember that drive? I had been in school for a semester, and I was talking to you about, like, it's sweet, man. Like, it's been so easy. I'm in English 950, math 950, sociology. It's great, man. You should totally do it. And then you end up finishing like 3 years before me.
No, and I burned through college.
Yeah, you
I
did.
definitely did.
You did it the right way.
But that was, there hit that point where I was working 40 hours a week. I was going to school 20 hours a week. I was doing, that much in homework. I was.
Had you graduated? Did you graduate during .P?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
You were still in school when we were doing
when we
.P.
first started this, I was in
So
like
you
my
were
junior
school,
year.
girlfriend, full-time job, and .P.
Yeah, and things changed. I wanted to finish school when I went to school because I hit this kind of realization with this career that I didn't, as there are elements of this job that are fun. They're challenging. It's not ever, it's never super dull, but there is some repetition to it. There are the same strategies for overcoming almost every problem. There aren't a lot of new things for me, I feel like, to learn. And honestly, I don't feel like there's a lot of room for growth outside of my current field, because I ended up segueing into project management, which is basically where I manage I manage engineering projects from cradle to grave. That's kind of where I managed to rise to. It's not what I want to do for a living. It's not what I want to do forever. So college felt like, okay, I'm going to go explore. I'm going to go do this. And it was also life-changing. Like, it's another thing I'd recommend to people.
Yeah,
like
college is absolutely. It'll make you think in ways you never thought you'd think.
And even if people always say, like, college isn't for everybody, and I'll buy that argument to an extent. But I don't.
Some of college is for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I think some of college is. Like, I think everybody would benefit.
There's a class for everybody.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Yeah, for sure. And I
there's
think
a field out there.
I think if everybody went and got an associate's degree, I even just an associate's, I think that it would be
the associate's was the
eye-opening.
biggest part of my transformation. I would say is
and
everything that I got from the associates.
You'll be surprised what you wind up enjoying, and that was kind of what I figured out along the way. I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed, or what I wound up enjoying.
Oh God, my problem was I wanted to be everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew that. Every single day it was a new major. I remember walking into East Side Diner, a shitty diner.
It's coming back.
That's coming back. It's already back.
I love that diner.
Thai Palm Express is what it's now called. Yeah. Anyway, and turn it over to you and saying, I think I'm going to be a math major. And you're like, huge workload.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I'm a math major. And then it's like, no, I think I'm going to be a physics major. Yeah. Then it's like even bigger workload. You only
changed majors like 7 or 8 times over the course of this project.
9 official major changes.
Jesus.
While I was going to school.
I think you'll go back. But to answer your question, though, about how it's impacted
how is your
the routine. So as far as .p affecting those relationships, I don't think that it had that much of a focus, other than it became something that took up time.
Do you feel like people resent us? Like people close to us resent us for doing
I think some. Because
resent you, maybe, because you were the one. I'm kind of, for a lot of the people, I'm kind of came in late. Like, you were there the whole time. You know what I mean? So
I think what those closest to us resent about us doing this is, one, there were always, we've talked about, especially on like the Patreon episodes and in previous episodes of this, just the main podcast, but there were always harebrained schemes. There were always things
every time I was over at the condo, there was some new idea.
Some new project. And by harebrained scheme, I don't mean like, we're going to rob that bank. I mean more like, we're going to make a movie.
Yeah. Make a movie was the thing that was going around for the longest time. But no one got off their ass or everybody just got drunk that night.
Right. And that was something that, so when I genuinely believe that most of those guys were creative and intelligent people that were capable of it. I do believe that. I don't believe that they had the motivation to do it, and over time that became very frustrating, and it was something I had to walk away from. I just had to. I couldn't keep beating my head against a wall, after the third or fourth failed attempt at doing something where things didn't even get off the ground. It wasn't even like like we even filmed a couple of scenes, or we did, like nothing.
I'm going to gush a little bit here. I have a scene saved in my mind. And it was shortly after becoming buddies with you. I mean, you still had your crew, and you would still go do things, and maybe I wouldn't be invited to them, or I wouldn't go to them. But sure. I would hang out with you from time to time. And my image in my mind was, I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that I wanted to work on something. I knew that I saw Basir Sepik is what I saw. I'm not shitting you.
Yeah.
I'm really not. And I knew that somehow I had the motivation to tackle a project. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that if we were to ever team up, that we could make something happen. Because I knew that you had the technical, that you could handle the obstacles that would present themselves. I knew that was something that was something that would bog me down.
But I don't even think it's about that. Like, I do think it's all about motivation and a willingness to do it. Like, the one thing,
for sure,
people may, for instance, Proud Nursey, people may criticize Proud or Ursy about a number of things. Maybe you don't like the way they host a show. Maybe you don't like the way they talk about something, or the way they address something, or maybe their personality just rubs you the wrong way. What I love about Proud Nursey is they show up.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe Proud shows up a little late sometimes.
Yeah.
But
he shows up.
But he shows up, and they are willing to put in the work, and they're willing to put in the effort, and they're willing to take it seriously, even for something as dumb as a video game podcast.
And it is dumb. I mean, that's the thing.
No, and there are things like, but making a movie is dumb.
Yeah.
Forming a band is dumb. Creating a music album is dumb. Doing any of those types of things are dumb. They really are dumb. Yeah. You don't need to. Like,
and the pushback we got from everybody, significant others, friends,
yes.
family.
So on the friend front, though, to finish that point, the reason I think they resent us, and I don't want to oversell how successful we are.
No, we're not. We're not. But we just have a project that we do every single day.
Right, and that we keep at it, and there are, like, obviously...
I'm proud of our work ethic.
Yeah, me too.
Is what I am.
Me too.
Yeah.
And there are people that listen to this project. There are more people that listen to this project than anything by leaps and bounds, more than anything.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yes, but more listen to our shit more than other people, more than they ever listened to any of the stuff our friends ever did before. We have achieved.
So they still hold
the minuscule amount of notoriety that you and I have developed doing this podcast is leaps and bounds ahead of anything that they had done before. And I don't say that as a knock at them.
Yeah, and I don't think you even say that as a like an ego booster for us. Or
no, that's what I'm trying. I don't want that to sound right. I really don't want it to sound that way. I recognize that we're not there yet. It is cool that we're starting a business, that we have a business license, that we have a business bank account. All that stuff is awesome. We have
business cards that say "Defense of the Patients" on them.
Yeah,
it's
cool.
It's
awesome, and it's been cool to see this project grow. But I think what they resent is that the last project that I completely shit on, and I shit all over it. Was a couple of our buddies.
I shit all over it first.
Yeah, I think I did because I did it on the way home from. The project was one of those harebrained ideas that popped up on a road trip back from Texas, if you recall, when I came back. So that project popped up in the car on the drive back from Texas with a couple of buddies, and they said, let's start a podcast and we'll talk about politics. And I just said, nobody wants to know what you care, or nobody cares what you think about politics, is what I told him flat out. I was like, look, I don't care. I am your friend and I barely care what you think about politics. And it was joking, but like it was taken very harshly. And I was like, look, if you want to start a podcast, I told him, like, you need to find something, like, why not find something that isn't, one, over inundated? Because are you going to compete with all the politics podcasts
like Politico? I mean,
or just even at that point, like major news networks were kind of starting to dive into it.
BuzzFeed isn't considered a news outlet, and like try and compete with BuzzFeed,
right?
You know what I mean?
And so all I was trying to ever do,
or considered a reputable news.
Yeah, and
BuzzFeed, I get.
And on top of it all, I had such I know part of my attitude with all of them, and maybe this is shitty of me, was just that I had experienced them falling short, flaking on on every project, on every creative endeavor we'd ever attempted. And I was just like, no, I'm not, And then we went and did a podcast, and that was more serendipitous than it was like now I'm gonna start a podcast.
Oh yeah, that was before. I remember when you rented that. It was like a Mustang. I think you rented a Mustang.
I rented a Mustang. That's why I bought the Mustang.
Yeah, you rented a Mustang and drove it all the way down to Texas.
Which, by the way, is exactly what car rental companies, or what the companies that provide cars to car rental companies, are hoping happens. I fell into that trap.
You fall in love with the car.
I fell in love with that car, and then I bought. Yeah. So I had that miserable Honda Civic.
Well, it wasn't miserable at first, but
it was for the first year.
Yeah,
it was miserable very quickly thereafter.
Yeah,
those hybrids had so many problems.
Well, and you got a hybrid right when the hybrid craze was happening, so
I was jaded. I was really jaded. I got worse gas mileage than a standard gas hybrid did, or a standard gas Civic did. It was miserable.
I know.
Anyway, so
whether they resent us, resent you, I think the resentment would fall more on you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because,
but now we're doing it, and when people ask us about what's going on, or when I run into those guys and they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" The news I have in my life, because I work 8 hours and then I come here and we figure out what we got to do for the show for that evening. Monday through Friday, and sometimes Sunday through Friday. That's what eats up my time. Mm-hmm. And so whenever they ask me what's going on, I tell them things like, "Oh, well, just do more stuff with the show, with the podcast." yeah, you know, oh, hey, we're doing this with the podcast, or oh, yeah, we did a Patreon fundraiser on the podcast and we got a ton of donations. It was awesome. It's really cool.
Or we, helped send somebody to school.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff. And I think there's an added level of resentment there because the last idea that I shat on was a podcast, and now
I remember an idea coming up before that Texas trip where it was, we're going to talk about music and we're going to talk about our tastes and everything. And I remember thinking, and I shit on it hard, where I was like, I don't care. Like, I zone out. And I've known you for years. Why in the fuck do you think anybody's going to care?
Yeah.
And we'll get there. And
but more than anything, it was just the work ethic. Again, I just didn't. I really like, even if they had done that. I mean, I don't know.
So many projects started and failed within 3 days.
And if they had the wherewithal to keep it going, that would be a completely different story. Yeah. I mean, you can even look over, anyway. But yeah.
But that was the whole reason why I saw that, like, our last name. Like, I saw, like, that image of, like, I think that we could I think that it could happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's you are compromising to me or that we work well together. I'm not sure what it is.
I think we both compromise quite. I think we do along the way.
Whatever. I mean, you give me boys in the pub.
Yep, boys in the pub.
I mean, that's one. I think that's where I come in, is where you send me lyrics. Right. And then within within less than 24 hours, we have it done.
So before I'm going to finish I've been answering the same question for 40 minutes, I think. So quick summation of, like, how the podcast interferes. Other relationships, as you well know, it is a constant struggle in my romantic relationship. Constant struggle. Working 8 hours a day, working 8 to 9 hours a day, on top of coming over here and spending the time on the show, and on top of needing to do things like, in my free time, play Dota, means I spend a lot of time focusing on the show, and maybe not as much time as I should sometimes focusing on my relationship. That has caused fights. I won't lie. That has caused some serious fights along the way. I think you've had those as well, right?
Yes. It was toward the start of Defense of the Patients, where...
And mine's been more since we moved in together. And
I've always been working. Other than the lull after TI6, I've been, like, full force on this fucking thing.
Yeah.
And Audrey had the, this is never going to happen, just like everybody else. Audrey, honestly, never has believed in this up until recently.
Yeah.
Where she's now really believing in this.
Well, and I think Rin was always of the mind that, like, oh, this is a nice thing he does on the side. Because at the time, for a long time while we were doing this podcast, she was living down in Salt Lake, me up here in Ogden. So she didn't see me during the week.
You were over here every single... Your computer, you didn't even
I didn't even
take
it home.
House.
Yeah, I just didn't even take it home.
Maybe a year.
Yeah. And I think it wasn't until we moved in together that she realized how much time the show took.
Yeah.
And
it does. And if nothing ever happens from Defense of the Patients, I will look back with the fondest of memories.
Yeah, me too.
I'll say that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, take something out of thin air and make something of it is something that I think that vision that I saw has come true to a certain degree. Is what I was getting at, is that working on a creative project with you.
Well, all of that was
awesome.
All of that was so greatly. So much of this was serendipitous in that, and like, I don't want to undersell that. Like, we obviously spent a lot of time working on it, but you had all that audio equipment. You know what I mean?
This studio.
I had been falling in love with podcast. I had been, like, hardcore listening to podcasts for a good, like, 3 or 4 years at that point. Mm-hmm. And, like, I honestly, like, every time I listened to a podcast, I kept thinking of the movie Walk the Line.
Yeah. I just recently rewatched that.
Yeah. The Johnny Cash biopic. And, there was a time in the music industry when somebody like Johnny Cash could go in off the street and record an album and start to gain some notoriety and start to build a following and start to develop it into a career. that day is far behind us for the music industry, because now it's become
It's just so easy to get something onto the internet. I mean, and
well, but I mean with music, like that day's behind us. But,
oh yeah,
but
that's
with
what I mean.
podcasting,
that's what I mean with music.
Yeah,
Like,
with podcasting, I feel like we're in that golden age of being able to start a project and pursue it and potentially grow it.
it's still got to be a good idea. I love that scene in Walk the Line where he's like, "Don't give me the same old bullshit everybody's giving me. Give me what you give me something different."
Yeah.
And then Johnny Cash pulls out the song where I killed a man in Reno
Just to watch him die.
And then he's
Yeah.
like, and then the guy's just like, yeah, like
Yeah.
that scene.
Yeah.
Where like, I mean, I don't
And
know
don't get me
how
wrong,
accurate
like
it
I
is,
don't
but-
think Defense of the Patience is
No, but-
shot a man in Reno.
But the
good,
thing
but-
is, that was my big issue, honestly, with the other project that we tried to start, was that is the same old shit. That is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I hate to say it. That's just the same shit that everybody's doing. The reason Defense of the Patience was different is we went after a niche audience on something that we loved to do.
right, and if we are ever able to like
We didn't try and stroke our own ego. Is
Right,
We
we
tried-
wanted to-
We wanted to talk about a thing that we loved.
Yeah, that we actually had a passion about, that we actually cared about, that we were
And,
enjoying,
yeah.
and I admittedly, like, we were definitely in the fervor of like a new thing, which was awesome. And we were so
Oh,
like I
man.
was so swept up by this game when we
I
started.
remember our first the first Sunday we got 67 downloads, and it was insane. I remember.
Oh, I meant Dota.
I know Dota. But I'm like talking
Oh,
in
yeah,
response
yeah.
like Defense of the Patience and Dota. I remember hitting 2K with you.
Yeah.
I remember you hit 2K first, and I remember like inside being like, oh, fuck him. I remember all these moments. I remember our first 100 download day.
Yeah.
Where it was incredible.
Oh, because I had like when we started it, I no joke thought we were going to put it up online, and at most, like I honestly wasn't even
was
sure
thinking,
people
like,
would find it.
I didn't think people would find it,
And I
remember.
remember thinking like if it was in the double digits, it would be cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and it was cool. I remember the pie in the sky number, and I don't really want to give the number, but having that real conversation with you and Andrew, where you guys are, oh, we're gonna get there, and it's gonna be crazy. When we get there, it's gonna be like this, and it's gonna be like that, and just being like, you guys, we're not gonna get there. It's never gonna get to that point, and being to the point where we're projected to be 15 times that number.
Yeah.
For this next month.
Yeah, we've just stopped thinking about like
A number.
what might be.
Yeah, it's
just
it's literally gone to day by day.
Yeah, and
opposed to, which is way better.
yeah,
way better.
It is way better, but at the same time, it makes me. It's so funny whenever things like, because like this went from being like passion hobby to, okay, maybe this could be a passion job, or like this could have, and it slowly turned into work, and seeing it's so weird to think that like. I don't know. I worry that like I became somewhat jaded by it, like at the same time, because it's like
I'm gonna pull up a conversation I had with Shrek 2 on DVD, because this is a guy we met in Seattle, and it was weird to realize that he basically said that he's like, I just bro fisted you, and I pictured it in my mind, and it was so good. And like this is a guy that he told us, and this is a line that I'll never forget, the being told, but like he's like, just remember, there's a guy on a forklift that is listening to your show and laughing out loud, and you guys make my life better, and something like that. And like,
yeah, that was really.
and it was like, are you fucking
Well, and
kidding
so
me?
that's
like, what?
That's what's been the best thing about this whole process is
And that is humbling. That is
it's humbling, and it
that
makes
does
me
not
like
boost my ego.
No,
or
it
anything.
makes me
It's
get
just-
all like weirdly self-esteem.
Yeah, me
if I'm
too.
being honest.
It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, because I don't.
Because it's like, don't listen to what I have to say with that much levity, please.
Well,
Like,
and not only that, but I don't know. There's this. I guess there's still a part of me that feels like wanting to pursue any level of notoriety is innately selfish. And so I always feel uncomfortable when we talk about things that the show is doing. But at the same time, what I love about, like, the things I do love about the show are connecting with people.
Yeah.
Like it is so much fun. Like, for instance, I complained about my iPhone on the Monday episode, and it was such a passive comment. Like, I mean, I was just complaining to Ursi, like, almost just conversationally. And I've had like 3 or 4 people hit me up offering to help me. The last and poor Cookies, he probably got the worst of it because he hit me like right while we were doing the TI thing, while we were trying to buy tickets to TI today. And Cookies messaged me, and I went in depth with like how fucked my iPhone was, telling poor Cookies this. But it was so nice because literally every person like was telling me like, hey, I work at Verizon. I could tell you what we could do, or here's what we could do if like you wanted to get it. And it's so fucking nice, and it's so awesome to get that chance. Like me and Cookies just kind of like I kind of vented to the poor bastard. It's so nice to talk to those people. And Shrek, I'm glad you brought him up because
he's
he
hilarious.
was so fun. It was so nice to talk to him, and it's almost
everybody. I mean,
there's a shitty element to all of this that is like. I would love to go have drinks with Shrek. Like I would love to go sit and like have a night of conversation with him because he seems like such an interesting guy.
He got tickets, him and Top Gun on Betamax.
So so I say that just because
he was the funniest person there. To be honest,
he was great.
I was like, dude, you just take my spot because I'm nervous as hell.
Well, and like Dillanoid, meeting Dillanoid up there.
Oh, the Noid
was so much fucking fun.
Your favorite player's favorite player.
Yeah, he's so much fucking fun, and and the shittiest thing about it is like I don't even feel like it's so fun to connect with everybody, and I just don't even feel like I get a chance to fully connect with them.
You don't, and it's getting to the point where it's hard to know everybody. Like at first we were able to know everybody on a personal level, and now it's getting to the point where it's really hard.
Yeah.
Once again that sounds super douchey, but
it makes me feel bad. I genuinely feel
weird.
bad. Like if I don't remember somebody's like handle, I feel like I feel like an asshole.
And I don't know. I guess this whole one-on-one interview was more to just, I don't know, say that like I feel like it may as well be Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for us keeping at it.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. No, I'm gonna gush. Like I'm thankful that we took the idea and we didn't stop. Even though there were so many days where you came over and I'm like, I'm fucking done. Yeah. This is over.
Well, we've all quit a time or two, I think, along the way.
And you know what keeps it going are people that just, hey, how's it going? You know, it's like, what the fuck? Like, why? Like, you know, we have 300 people online right now that I could, that each one of them I know would be willing to listen to my woes.
And is like, I can count.
It's like, and they would listen to anybody else's woes. I can
count on one hand the number of people we've ever had like pop into the .p community or the .p Discord or anything like that like was a problem and like we didn't want to communicate with. I can count on one hand the number of people that's been the case, and
I can count on 2 fingers people that we've banned.
Yes.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like the community that sprung up around this show has been life altering. It's been life altering in a really awesome way.
It's the strangest thing. And when people are like, I get thank yous for the community, and I'm like, yo, don't thank me.
Nope, I don't even
know who you thank. Thank yourself or something. I'm not sure because
if you want to thank somebody for the .p community, they're like the early people.
Maybe Easy Marchese.
Easy, I think definitely played a huge role in it. But I don't want to, people like Jay Gushi, people like Hada Kamara, Nameless Noob. Like these were people who started listening to the show really early on. I know I'm leaving names out.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like to name
I know I hate
names
to name names too, but I mean like there were people that like because they were there and because they were so interactive with us, it was so fun to interact with people while doing the show.
And without you guys, we may have never continued.
Yeah, I mean there was a strong possibility that the show didn't go past like 2 or 3 months, and it would have just been like every other fucking Dota podcast that had come before it that had a spark lit for 10 or 12 episodes and then was just gone. I mean,
and like every other idea that we had before, that the spark was lit and then never went anywhere.
No, and it's definitely like there as much as we do work at it, so much of that like motivation definitely came from and was further inspired by the people in that community and the people that listen to these shows.
For sure. Okay, last question.
Okay.
Where do you see the future? For Defense of the Patients. Where do we see the future for you? Where's your future? Relationships, work, Defense of the Patients, all of it.
Well, I'll probably wind up married at some point. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. That's likely. Down the road.
Which you will never get married. I remember that statement multiple times. But yeah, okay.
But I might have had my bluff called. Which is the scariest thing to ever happen in poker, having your bluff called.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my bluff might have been called there. So that's probably in the future. As far as career, I don't think I'll be doing what I'm doing right now, and I mean that by my day job. As far as podcasting, as long as people will let me podcast, I'll do it. It's fun. I love being on the mic with people. I love doing the interview show and connecting with people, even just briefly, and trying to delve in and ask them questions about their lives and figure out
I don't like it.
who they are.
I'll tell you, that Swindles interview was like, oh God, please no.
No, that was a good
No,
interview.
dude, please,
That
no,
was
no,
a
no,
good
no, no,
interview.
no, 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 no. Then I was like, hi, you're a very enigmatic individual, and how enigmatic you are.
Well, enigmatic is a tough word. You know?
Oh my God.
It's an enigmatic word.
Oh.
But yeah,
I cringe thinking about that, honestly. Like, that's not my... I'm great at connecting with people,
Yeah.
but I'm not great at elucidating things from people.
like asking for further information.
Yeah,
getting
I'm not
details.
good at, like... I don't know. I feel like you're... Like, I'm too, like, in your face to get, like, the real pearls out of the clam.
No, I think you do a good job. I think you go down different paths than others might have, and maybe a less direct path than traditional interviewers. But
I
it
would
works.
much rather just, like, pop the champagne and be like, let's buy hype!
Yes,
You know what I mean?
I'm very aware.
Like,
yeah.
that's kind of my role around here.
But yeah, so as long as people let me and keep interacting and enjoying it, like I enjoy doing it, and I would love to keep doing it.
5 years from now, where's Defense of the Patience? Is it dead?
You know what? You and I have talked about
Take a
this a
moment
lot.
to think about it.
No, I've thought about this a long time.
So we would be 2022.
2022. So
In the year 2022, where is Defense of the Patience?
I am more and more of the opinion that Dota probably is one of those legacy games.
What if it shrinks to 6 million?
Even if it shrunk to 6 million players, that would still be a pretty big ecosystem. And you and I, like, you and I have talked before, like, and we've thrown out all sorts of numbers, even though we have no idea what the actual, like, player division of is, like, for English speakers versus non-English speakers, who obviously we speak English, so we need English speakers listening to the podcast. We've gone over a lot of this before, and we don't even need 1%. If we hit 1% of the English-speaking Dota audience and listening to this podcast, which used to seem like a crazy number and now seems like a less crazy number, we could probably live comfortably off of the podcast and keep doing it and not just live comfortably, but actually be like devoting ourselves full-time 8 hours a day during the week to the podcast, which would be a blast. I can only imagine the stuff that you and I would get to do if, when I left in the morning and got to come home at night, which would be a huge relief for my relationship.
Yeah, if it actually ended when you drove home.
If it actually ended when I drove home.
I don't think it'll ever be that way.
No, because there's always social media and
last
talking
night,
to people.
I was trying to watch Always Sunny with Audrey, and it's like 8 p.m. because I've been going to bed at like 9 p.m. And she's like, it's family time, put your phone away.
Yeah,
And so
I get
my
that
phone
too.
just sat there and went bzz, bzz,
Yeah.
bzz, 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 bzz,
Yeah.
bzz. And she's like, she made me put it all the way across the room because I'm like, I don't know how to turn the vibrate off. I don't know how to turn the vibrate off. I'm sorry.
I'll show you, Grandpa Roland.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there'll always be a little bit of element of that, but at the same time, it would be a lot as far as like you and me needing to sit here to record, you and me needing to sit here to go over a contract for advertising, you and me needing to sit here to write up this new document to, arrange this contracted service with so-and-so, review new graphics, review website design changes, all that stuff. If it happened during the 8-hour period that I'm normally at my day job, and then I got to go home, that would be a very different thing. There would still be like 4 or 5 hours a day that it wasn't like eaten up by the show on top of all that.
And it'd be fun.
And it would be fun.
What we could get done in 8 hours.
And more importantly, like I think we'd be able to get all of that accomplished and do extra stuff. Because how many times have you and I talked about wanting to do video content? Like I know some of you haven't heard it yet, but Boys in the Pub is is maybe the best parody song we've ever done.
It's not maybe the best. It is the best parody song.
That is thanks to Roland and Juice. Like
and
that,
you wrote it.
right? But that was me going, ha ha ha! This would be so funny if Roland sang this, and then sending you an email. Like the production that went into that was definitely more than the writing, because it's very easy when inspiration hits. It's easy to write parody lyrics.
Well, that's one thing that I think the biggest addition I give is like that idea. I was not gonna let rest.
Yes.
I took that fucking idea. I messaged Juice the second I got it. And I was like, Juice. But even before I started recording, I was like, I'm gonna need your help with this. Like, I have an idea of how I'm gonna record it, but as far as mixing it, I will not do it justice.
Yeah.
But
doing stuff like that and then taking it to the next level where we do a music video and then we get to post it on Reddit and have fun and like share funny things that we like to come up with. I would love to be at that point. I would love to be providing, better content, more solid content in a legitimate studio. I would love for everything you heard to be crisp and clean to the utmost level of perfection possible. I would love to have you and I, we joke about like we don't edit episodes anymore, but I'd love to edit episodes actually. I think it would be like, but I would love for it to,
it's just too tremendous a task to do 5 days a week.
If we had 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, maybe we could do more of that. But on top of it, just the additional stuff we'd be able to do would be a blast. So being able to do that, that's one. Seeing that in the future, I really hope that we're able to do that. I really do think that Dota has the potential to go long. I'd also love to, in those 8 hours, be able to do side projects with you. If people like what we're doing, I would love to be able to do more generalized content on the side and release that for people to hear. And the other big thing I'd love to do is hire people. Like, I'd love to be able to hire people to work at Defense of the Patients.
Yeah.
That would be so fun to have. And
I'll tell you the first person I'd hire.
Who's that?
Your brother.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, or maybe Juice. I mean, it'd be fun to be like...
Well, I mean, if we were to hire, like, another show host
Oh,
or
sure,
like
for
that.
another, like, project, sure. But, yeah, absolutely. He's good on mic. But it would be fun to hire people for, like, .p related jobs, to be doing, additional projects or helping us with areas of expertise that you and I don't have, because like you and I don't have
video editing
right. We don't have a lot of areas of expertise.
I would love to get. Here's my dream.
Okay.
Here's my dream team. Okay.
I already know two of them: an animator and a video editor.
No, well, I'm gonna give names. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna give names.
Okay, shit.
These are .p employees. This is my dream. I'm gonna give out names.
Okay.
So the four of us.
Yeah.
I love working with Ursi and Proud.
I do too.
As much shit as I give Ursi, I love that little guy.
Yeah. I hope that that's very clear. We give a lot. Like, and
it's a dynamic, you guys. Like, sorry, like it's we are here to entertain you, and I give a ton of shit to Ursi.
Yeah.
But guess what? We're friends. We're good friends. Yeah. I say that. I hope that's true.
Yeah, I hope so too.
So it'd be, Ursi and Proud, and then it'd be Alex Lindemann, Deadman.
Oh, okay. For like web,
for web
like
design
full-time web
and
stuff.
ideas. For sure.
Yeah.
It would then be Juice, of course. Juice would be on that team.
Yeah.
Blackheart, Grouty, which we're already lucky enough to have.
Yeah, as an investor.
People.
Yeah.
Then it would be some animator.
Yeah.
Some person that's really good at Photoshop.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And that's it.
You might be able to get the animator and the Photoshop guy and the same guy, or his lady.
I would want separate. Like, I want a graphics guy, and then I'd want an animator guy, because I don't want the animator guy
or lady. We're open to everybody.
Guy,
I'm just giving you shit.
The proverbial guy.
I'm just politically
Gender's not
correcting
real,
you.
Whatever. The person.
Right.
I would want the animator to do only animating, the Photoshop, the graphics to do only graphics.
Right. And just manage like our digital presence in a way, like managing YouTube.
And then of course Wivrix. Is another individual that he is kind of already in that role, but love the shit out of that guy. Big shout out to him.
But yeah, no, this is what I'm saying. Like if I get to like if I get to this, if I get to decide,
really had my druthers, it'd be Easy Marchese.
Yeah,
but that goddamn guy would rather spend time with his family than work on this.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No, I'm with you. So I guess if the question is if I get to decide where .p is in 5 years, That's what I'd pick
And,
every day.
and I don't mean that like Juice has his job like he has now. I mean, Juice is hired.
Yeah, where we
Like,
go,
Juice
what are they
is-
paying you?
Yeah, double. Yeah, double. Like that's the dream, right?
Yeah,
and to be,
absolutely.
And be like, okay, quit your job.
Would we move?
Yeah,
Would you be willing to move?
yeah, to Seattle. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah,
I'd get a house in Seattle,
yeah.
and it would be. So we'd need 2 houses, really, 3 houses in Seattle.
We need 2 houses and a studio.
2 houses and a studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the dream.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what? That dream was a lot further away.
And I'd force Proud Nursey to move there too.
It would, yeah,
Because
I
I'd
would
want
too.
everybody to record in the
Yeah.
studio. Yeah.
And-
I'd want to like turn it into an operation. That would be the dream.
And we're
maybe that-
we're 2 years closer to it than we were.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the only
2.5 years.
And like I don't know if any of that's realistic. I don't know that any of that can ever happen. But if I get to have a dream, sure, that's it. What do I want? What do I want my future 5 years to look like? I want to be in a
Seeing
happy
the numbers
relationship.
grow.
I want to be in a happy relationship. I want to see
I don't care
the
about
audience
any of that
grow.
shit, dude. Happy relationships. No thanks, dude.
I want to be in a happy relationship.
No, I'm
I want to have
joking.
the audience grow. I want to be working on .p full time, and I want to be as close to that image of .p as I can possibly get. That's my goal. That's what I'll do from here.
Well, that's a wrap, guys. Denny, Cyphus, Cypress, Cypher, Pouty Denny, General Denny.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I get pouty, Denny.
Because sometimes you come in here and you're pouty.
No, sometimes I come in here and I've had a long day and I'm thinking about doing the rest of this, and then I get, "What's wrong, bro?"
And multiple times you get
And then it's like nothing. I just had a day.
yeah. Okay, by the way, listeners, kind listeners, which that's an Ursi line that I just stole. Kind listeners.
Some podcaster calls them dear listeners. if I
Dear
remember
listeners,
correctly.
I'm not going to be stealing some other guys. I can steal Ursi's shit,
Yeah,
but I'm not going to
that's fair
steal.
enough.
Kind listeners, twitch.tv/.ptv. I am live every single day at 12:30 Eastern.
right.
So if you want to see how bad Roland is at Dota, I promise you I try to keep it entertaining. I talk the entire time.
Today you
and
were spamming
Lena.
boys in the pub all
Oh
day.
yeah, boys into pub in between every single game because I wanted like a test audience. I wanted to see like
Yeah.
what people thought. There definitely needs to be some lyrical changes.
Yeah,
before
some
we-
slight changes,
but
for sure.
you guys will know what we're talking about soon. Yeah, so Twitch, check that out. Pop in if you guys want to see, if you're at work and you want some entertaining something, even to listen to. I promise I'll be as entertaining as possible. That's something that it would be stupid for us not to go into that and try and grow Twitch. And so
Yeah, I agree.
I've started streaming every single day, and
You know what? It's been fun. It's been fun when I'm bored at work to at least toss a stream on. I don't always get, like, sometimes I have to bail, but when I don't have to bail and I can sit there and flame you, it's good times. It's good
so
times.
12:30 p.m. Eastern to, you know, if I win a lot, I'll keep playing.
Yeah.
If I lose a lot, I might stop. But we do fun things, and the people that are in there are really cool. It's
a fun crew that joins
it's a fun
in
crew
every
to join.
day.
Of course, defenseofthepatients.com. That is about to change in a very big way.
Yeah.
I know we've been saying this.
It will be before tax day.
It will. What's
Right?
tax day?
April 15th.
Yes, it has to be before
Yeah,
tax day.
I know.
Yes, it will be. That's going to be huge. Also, YouTube /.ptv1
Right.
is where you can find all of Theorycraft Thursday, all of Counterattack,
And every episode of this podcast.
and every episode of this podcast. Although, yes, you can. I think
Yeah.
you can find every episode. Maybe that's where I should be going.
A couple of them didn't port over.
Oh.
If I'm being honest. Yeah. But I think for the most part, I managed to port everything over to YouTube.
Please, this is kind of a pretty big please. Please go to Twitter and follow us if you don't have a Twitter, make a Twitter and follow us. I will say that
You're gonna encourage that now?
I will. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ursi made a Twitter to follow Rooster Teeth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Please follow @p_show. I promise
Yeah,
you,
that's true.
The bigger that number is, the more reputable we look, and I promise you, there's a lot of people that listen to this show, unless the stats tracking that we're doing is lying, and you're not following us. That's your choice.
Yeah.
But
no, and I don't know. You know, I think a lot of people don't use Twitter. I
Well,
do
don't
wonder
use
about
it.
that
Just
sometimes.
follow us, please, because it makes us.
Yeah, you don't have to use
it.
it.
Makes us
Just
look a
follow.
little more reputable.
Yeah, because
I
it is
will
like
be
a
honest.
fraction of the audience that follows on Twitter.
Very small
But
fraction.
I think we say it every show. I think people just don't use Twitter.
It's just turned into you saying it every show and like emphasizing it are two different things. And of course, if you have any questions, feedback, anything, iTunes is a great place to leave feedback. We'll read it on the show, and defenseofthepatients@gmail.com. With all that being said, I'm Roland. That's Cyphus. I interviewed Cyphus today. Goodbye.